Now we're on. All right. So want to welcome everyone. I'm State Representative Jonathan Singer, representing House District 11 in Niwot, Longmont, Lyons, and Allens Park. And I want to thank my guests here today. We're going to talk about immigration reform, the state of our system here in Colorado, and what we can do as a society, not only in the policy arena, but if you're struggling with an individual issue right now, we've got some of the best experts, not only in the state, but in the nation, on what you need. So please feel free to post in the comments section any questions you might have. We're going to be looking at them online as you post them. And then for those of you who weren't able to make this during your lunch break, we're going to make sure that we leave that comment section up for at least another 48 hours. So if you want to post comments or questions, we'll get the experts back to you to answer those questions. But I'm joined by three guests today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves a little bit. And so I'm going to start to my left for starters. And so tell us a little bit about how you got involved with this and what you'd like to see us maybe talk about today.
Well, my name's Laurel. I am the executive director, the managing attorney here at the Immigrant Legal Center of Boulder County. I've been involved in immigrant rights and immigration issues for 25, 30 years now. And my interest came out of concerns for families in our communities. And so that concern is continuing 30 years later, which is actually quite disappointing. I would very much like to talk about what's going on at the federal level and how that impacts what the state may need to do in order to best protect immigrants in this very volatile time in our nation's history when it comes to immigrants, because we know immigration is possibly the one area that our president has complete control over, and so we need to figure out some defensive measures that may turn out to be very necessary.
All right. So, and to my right, our two trusty sidekicks here today who agreed to help pitch it. We reached out to the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. They weren't able to make this noon meeting, but I know you guys have this more than well in hand. So whoever wants to go first, you want to introduce yourself and just tell the audience how you got involved with the issue and what you'd like to see get out of this conversation today.
Well, my name is Belen. I'm an accredited representative here at the Immigrant Legal Center. And I actually first got involved with immigrant rights back like in high school in Longmont. And then I found my way here somehow years later. But just really what I think is important in this live feed is to get people some correct information because information is out there, but it's not always correct. So that's, I think, one of my goals.
All right. Well, thanks, Belen. And high school wasn't that long ago for you. Come on. So.
Yeah, it was.
So were you with Northern Colorado Immigrants United before when they were life?
So sort of, yeah. So there was LULAC at Skyline High School in Longmont, and I started there.
Okay.
So.
All right. See.
A while ago.
Skyline High School students, look where you can go after that.
Yeah.
So, all right.
My name's Maria, and I am paralegal in training and office manager here, and I started to in high school, 2009. That's been what, 10, 11, 12 years?
10 years officially yesterday. So
yeah.
it was.
And I was with NCDU for a couple of years as well, and now I'm here. And one of the main things that I wanted to get out to the community is educate them more as to what's really happening. And I see that there's a lot of fear out there also, and I wanted to bring a little bit of like to let them know that they're not alone and we're all in this together. So yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, we are all in this together, especially here on Facebook Live. We've got the whole world watching us. No pressure. So, so over the last couple of years, it's been interesting at the Capitol because we've had a Democratic House and a Republican Senate. And so that's really required that everything be bipartisan if we want to see legislation pass. And I always tell people that, I would much rather fight for what I believe in and see something not pass than to compromise in a way that's just going to completely, water down something to the point where it does nothing. And so it's been a challenge over the last few years as we started with an immigrant driver's license program back in 2013, 2014 to help people get insurance, learn the rules of the road, pay a fee just like every other driver, except 2 to 3 times as much as what every other driver like myself pays, to get out on the road so they're not afraid of getting pulled over and not having insurance, not having a driver's license, so they can get their kids to school, so they can go to the hospital or take someone to the hospital who's sick. If we want to build a society that's actually, one that not only accepts people for who they are, but says that public safety is a priority, then this was the program to do. And then just 2 years after that passed, we had the number of driver's license offices cut in half. Not for financial reasons, but for political reasons. And so it's been a battle ever since then. We were finally able to pass a bill just this year with bipartisan support that didn't open more offices, but it at least opened up the system a little bit more. So if you have a social security number assigned to you, you can use that for the process. Our kids with DACA, this is huge. This is a huge thing. But this is something that took years and years and years of effort. And finally, through a bipartisan push, we were able to get it through both chambers and get the governor to sign it. It's a first step, but I'm wondering if you guys can talk a little bit about your experience with this. I know after that, I want to bring up some of the rumors that I've been hearing that are not totally unfounded and some of the concerns that might be going on. But I don't know who wants to start. Talk a little bit about the driver's license system and process.
Oh, I would love to talk about the driver's license issue because that's something I got involved in 2000. That is the first time people in Boulder County started talking about, could we really get a driver's license for immigrants in Colorado? And there was a hearing in the state Senate back on Valentine's Day of 2002. So the effort for driver's licenses goes way back. And the year after the driver's license did not pass the first time, that's when the whole effort of trying to figure out how to get a statewide coalition to come together got started, which I think was extremely important. But there was also a very negative thing that happened after that effort, and that was a little bit of pushback from the other side in the guise of the Secure and Verifiable Identity Document Act, which I'm very hopeful that the Senate or that the Democrats now will get rid of. I talk about this SVID as the rough edge on the banister that is waiting to give somebody a splinter. Because this is a law that makes it illegal to accept the matricula consular and other types of documents as identification. And it sets up a private right of action to sue a public servant who would like to help the community by accepting an identification document. So that could go away. That would be an excellent thing for the Democrats to do, is get rid of that Secure and Verifiable Identification Document Act. So it took many years after the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition got started, tried to build statewide support, and into the actual 2013 effort to get the driver's license passed. And that has been a tremendous thing for people in our community. It has reduced fear to extremely low level up until this newest president took office. And so now we have some concerns again, but the message from the state of Colorado is very clear that immigrants are welcome and valued here. And I think that is a really important message to make sure it continues in this legislative session.
So Maria, Belen, any thoughts on the program, where it is today, whether it's working, not working, how it could work better?
I mean, obviously it's a great program because it was very needed, but we did know from like a couple of years back, people even just getting a driver's license were afraid to do it because of the process. It was very hard to get like appointments and whatnot, and people weren't very trustworthy of the people who were out there supposedly helping, charging quite a bit of a fee to get an appointment. And then just people who had socials who couldn't get the driver's license, what just passed really will help. And it'll get a lot more people their driver's license, so it's a good program.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get in the line. People waited so long.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope that this.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing is that, so, you know, I take this for granted, but we all sort of complain about the Department of Motor Vehicles, right? You know, if you getting your driver's license renewed is about as, you know, exciting as going to the dentist. It's something everyone has to do, but no one is particularly excited about it, and usually you have to take like at least half a day off. Now for folks that are using this other form of documentation, the lines, we're talking about months, right? You know,
Yeah.
sometimes upwards of a year, and you might have to go because there's no Longmont office, there's no Boulder office. If you're living in Boulder County in Longmont right now, you might have to drive to Grand Junction.
Yeah,
And it's really hard to drive to Grand Junction if you don't have a driver's license.
exactly.
And so we're almost setting people up to fail. And so that's always one of the considerations that I tell people is we have about $2 million paid for from the fees from individuals that are trying to get in line that are now just stuck waiting. And so hopefully we can do this. I know 2 years ago we passed a bill that said you can't just take up a spot in line and then try and sell it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And people were making hundreds of dollars doing this, which is awful that people are preying off of this community, but that's what happens. And so, you know, one idea is to criminalize it. The other idea is to get rid of that line by actually putting these fees to a purpose and without letting, you know, and I tell people this, there's no taxpayer dollars that go to this.
Mhm.
It's straight up people who pay their fees. So this is the rumor that I've been hearing online and in the news is that ICE is actually using these people with driver's licenses and using that driver's license system to locate folks and then arrest and deport them. And so I'm just wondering, tell us a little bit about what that's like, whether you've seen that happen, what advice you might have for folks out there, given what I've been just hearing in the world of the rumor.
So there are millions, 11 million people undocumented in the United States. And there's no end of places that ICE could go to try to locate those people. The problem is, from their point of view, they just don't have enough manpower, nor is there the political will to expend the money to deport people who are valuable community members. So could they use the database? I see no reason why they would not be able to. Are they incentivized to do it? I don't think that at the moment there is any incentive for them to go looking for someone for the first time through that database. If someone already has an ICE encounter, if they might have an old order against them, I think immigration attorneys have told that group of people, do not apply for that new driver's license because you would be at risk. So it's not a panacea to have that kind of driver's license. One of the things we've been talking about as an organization and have been talking about with the city of Boulder, the county of Boulder, is the value in having a different kind of document available that we're calling a community ID card that would be issued by a nonprofit organization, which would not be trackable because the information would not be on anyone's radar. So that's something we think might be a really good backup opportunity for people in case the federal government starts targeting Colorado for being too nice to immigrants.
Right. So, well, that sounds like a great problem to have. At least the last part is being too nice to people. New Year's resolutions, right? Just dollars to donuts though. If I currently am in this country, I'm undocumented, should I go sign up and try and get a driver's license right now? Or are there certain circumstances where I should say, you know what, it's not worth the risk?
So this law has been in effect for several years now. So we're not talking to people that are coming with that question, because that was the question back at the beginning. So the people that are now considering whether or not they should have applied for a driver's license pretty much have been concerned about it for a number of years, and possibly for a good reason. And so I would not give any kind of across the board recommendation. What I would say is, if you have resisted for this number of years, you absolutely should go and talk to an immigration attorney and figure out what your individual risk is and whether or not it makes sense. If it is someone that has just been trying and has been blocked out of getting an appointment, and that's the reason they haven't applied up to now, they should keep trying, and hopefully they'll have more success.
So the other thing that I want to do, and if people hear the phones ringing in the background, this is not an NPR fundraiser or anything like that. But actually, I do want to maybe use this as an opportunity for a plug. We're in a real law office right now. This is not a movie set or anything like that. So if people do want advice, do want help, where can they go? How can they reach you? And we'll put links in the comments section later. But how would people best reach out?
They can always call the main office number, which is 303-444-1522. Again, that's 303-444-1522. I'm the one that will be picking up the phone. My name's Maria, if you guys forgot. But you can also find our website, which is boulderayuda.org. And we do have a Facebook page right now, which is Boulder Ayuda. ILC. We changed it. But you guys can reach out there. We are also very good at emails, but all of our information, like our emails, should be on that website. And you guys are more than welcome to come in and talk to one of them about your personal risk.
All right, great.
And if I could add one more thing, we regularly get emails and calls from people who are worried about a friend of theirs that only speaks Spanish and maybe has not gone and talked with an attorney about their situation, so that people know when Maria answers the phone, she answers it in Spanish, and so people can feel free to call. They do not need to speak English. We are a bilingual office. I am Spanish proficient, but Belen and Maria are completely bilingual, and so we welcome English-speaking community members to share with your Spanish-speaking friends that their calls here are welcome. We'd be very happy to talk with them.
Great. So the last comment I'm going to make on this, and then we can move on to some other things, is last year, and for the last several years actually, there was a bill that Representative Joe Salazar brought. Originally it was called the Ralph Carr Freedom Defense Act. There were some people who took offense at using the name Ralph Carr. For those of you who don't know, Ralph Carr was the Republican governor during World War II who fought the internment camps here in Colorado. Ralph Carr then lost his seat because of his defense of civil liberties, even against all popular will at the time. He did the right thing. There were some members of the Ralph Carr family that thought this was a great idea to do another bill to make sure that Colorado doesn't participate with ICE raids, doesn't assist ICE in what they're doing. So ultimately we decided to take that name out, but it's the same idea, is that we want to make sure that our state is not complicit in taking out people from this country that are only not documented because of a broken system. And so I don't know if you guys have some thoughts on what that bill did or any questions about it. I'm hoping we'll see another bill like that come back this year, but any thoughts on that?
I'm confused as to, is that similar to the Virginia's law?
So it's a little different than Virginia's law, actually. It's a little different than Virginia's law, but some of the ideas here were that Joe Salazar even put in things like saying that we couldn't mark people with numbers on their arms, which sounded ridiculous at the time, but now what we're seeing our federal agencies do to people, we're now seeing that this is actually something that is happening. So it is a little different than what Virginia's law would have done. But what it basically said is that our state is independent of our federal system when it comes to these things. And so we would not participate in the interning of people, we would not participate in the arrest of people when it was solely on the basis of an immigration offense. So we can move on and talk about other things too.
Now that I understand it better,
Yeah.
I would say absolutely. Oh my goodness, let's pass that on day one.
Okay.
That's a fantastic idea.
We might need to show the first-year lawmakers where the bathrooms are first, but we'll do that on day one first.
Okay.
But then we'll get there. So so let's move on. I know you mentioned the Secure and Verifiable Act, and I'm terrible with acronyms here, but so that was passed in 2003. Is that right?
2003, and I believe it was a direct response to the first time immigrants had shown up to protest or to ask for rights in the state of Colorado, and a legislator sent his aide around to me in the back because I was involved in trying to push this bill forward. And the question by this aide was, why do these people think it's okay for them to be here? And this was a hearing that had been moved to the old Supreme Court. It was 300 people, major union participation. We had amazing people testifying in support of this driver's license effort in 2002, including Professor Hiroshi Motomura, who is the author, in my mind, of the DACA legislation. We had Richard Garcia from the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition. We had George Epp, who had been the sheriff of Boulder County. So we had big, heavy hitters from around the state and sheriffs from other areas of the state saying driver's licenses need to be passed. This is about people who are part of our community, and that's where our focus should be. So the very next year, I think in an effort to kind of roll back the clock and convince people they shouldn't feel so comfortable, there was an attack on the matricula consular card, which especially the city of Denver was accepting as identification, because the matricula card is like a Mexican passport, but it also has the person's local address on it, so it's much more valuable. So imagine telling a librarian that you could be personally sued if you verified somebody's identification by looking at the matricula card, and that's what this Secure and Verifiable Identification Act has done. It has stripped away government immunity for knowing violations of the act, and that happens hardly ever in state law. So this is a piece of legislative cruft that just has to go. It is hanging out there waiting for some mischief to happen. If some lawmaker or if some group wanted to grab hold of this piece of legislation that is now in our statute books and say, hey, I saw somebody accepting a matricula ID card or another type of non-secure identification, they could cause a lot of mischief. So it just needs to be gone to open up new opportunities, especially opportunities such as community ID cards that might be something important coming down the line.
So, any other thoughts on that one, or should we move on to some other things?
We can move on.
All right. So so we're about halfway through here, and actually, you know, I want to actually switch it up a little bit. I'm going to break the fourth wall here. My aide Brian here is the one who's filming, and I've been using his iPhone, which apparently locked through his passcode, so I haven't been able to look at the comments. So Brian, if you just tell the viewing audience what your passcode, no. But Maria, I know you and Belen, we're looking at comments. Any questions from the viewing audience today?
Not yet.
Not yet. We've been answering all their questions before they even come up,
Probably.
right? So
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. So what do you want to talk about? What do you think is important for the community to hear? What would you like to see our state legislature and local government or federal government do? We're all basically getting sworn in by the end of the week, and then we'll get sworn at by the end of next week. But sometime between then and that, what would you like to see our elected officials actually do to better advocate with our communities?
You can answer that one. You have ideas.
I do.
Not just the ones your boss likes, but
You like all her
oh,
ideas.
I do too.
I mean, just really right now, what we feel is that we just need to get our community as educated as possible with anything and everything. There are a lot of rumors out there, for example, on like the public charge rule, and we've been doing some work with that, just trying to get people the right information so they won't be as scared, because the fear will always be there, just because of how the climate that's surrounding immigration right now is. And so really my advice to people, if you have questions, go directly to a immigration attorney that will be able to answer those questions, and you'll have faith that they're answering it correctly.
Gotcha. And it's a little scary for anybody to call an attorney. I think anytime that we use the word law or lawyer, I mean, even with my title as state representative, I know there are people just intimidated to call, thinking they need to be an expert on things, and that if they're not an expert, they're either going to be yelled at or just ignored. And so, is there anything that you would tell people out there to say, you know what, it's okay to call, it's okay to reach out? What I tell people is, don't feel bad about calling, because there's probably 10 people behind you that just haven't worked up the courage to call yet. And so by you calling, you're helping 10 other people at the least. But, are there other pieces of advice you'd have out there for people looking for legal help? Are there things you'd say, watch out for this, or be careful for this, or here's a really good way to do this?
Right. Well, that's a good idea to tell people they have 10 people behind them and they're the first to call. But also, at least in our office, we're a nonprofit, so we kind of can not do whatever we want, but we have the option to work a little bit different than, let's say, private attorneys. I would say we're a little more like laid back. We're not as scared to go to a law office. So I think we're pretty friendly here. So
we're very welcomed.
We speak Spanish. When we speak Spanish to people, we're not speaking like professional. Like, we get to communicate and understand. I mean, Maria and I obviously have we've had to go through the immigration process one way or another, so we understand what people are going through. And so when you're talking to someone that's been through the same thing that you're going through, it's a lot easier to talk to them. So I feel that that's a plus in our office, just because of the ways that we've had to go through immigration processes. And also, like, if people are afraid to call or are a little nervous to call, like Maria mentioned, we have our Facebook page, our website, where people can write to us. That's a little easier sometimes, so that's what I would tell them.
Okay, so don't be afraid to use website or Facebook. And then this is not an infomercial for any particular law office. I'm not receiving any sort of financial compensation. They did brew this cup of coffee for me. So along those lines, to jump back a little bit, you can tell this is, I'm assuming, we think of law offices of people, suits and ties, and I don't think we see any suits and ties. No one dressed up differently today than they would have otherwise. So definitely don't be intimidated by this.
So on the other hand, we are members of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. We are up to date on what is going on in the immigration law scene. We have connections with excellent private immigration attorneys in the area. We take a limited type of case that really revolves around family type issues, and we try to stay within our lane, and we refer people to excellent private attorneys if it's outside of what we feel comfortable handling within our office. And we are a nonprofit. We are helped by the City of Longmont, the City of Boulder, Boulder County, the City of Lafayette. So it is our job to help people, and we take a team approach with our clients. And so that helps us keep our prices way down and try to provide community service that we know is greatly needed.
So let's shift gears to a couple of other things. You mentioned Purple Card. for one thing.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't know what Purple Card is. Several states are already working with this. This is an issue that got brought up last year by Representative Dan Pabon. He is term limited, and so unfortunately he will not be able to bring this piece of legislation back. But this is a bill that came up last year, and we had not only people from the immigrant rights community, but we had business owners and farmers coming to the legislature to say, you know what, our immigration system is broken. Yes, we should always do things legally, but when the system doesn't work, either people feel like they're put in this impossible situation, or we can actually work to change the law in Colorado to make things work a little bit better. So I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about what you're hearing about the Purple Card, what you'd like to see as the session starts on Friday. Come up next year. I've told people that, you know, if we can't find a sponsor for that bill, I will sponsor it. But the idea for me, this is my last 2 years of the Capitol, is I want to get other people into the process and to understand what it's like to, you know, pass what is meaningful legislation, but also work with a community that is not always excited about coming to the Capitol, and get them to the seat of power to actually take some of that power back. So what are you guys hearing about Purple Card, and what do you think we could be doing about it?
I mean, it's very needed, obviously. People that know about it are excited to have it even past the first block. But we have seen, we've talked to people about it. We've talked to Omar, I forget his last name. Omar.
Yeah, I think it was just my
Omar,
first name.
Okay,
that's
Omar.
okay. We won't use your last name for security reasons.
Yes.
It's not because we forgot your last name,
No.
Omar. So
But he's very excited. So I would like just to see more support grow for this Purple Card, because it is something that the state needs. So it's very exciting to have that out there, to have you possibly have that behind you, or be something that you want to come through. So I'm excited about it. I would just like more people to be behind the idea of it.
yeah, that's you know, ultimately majorities rule in democracies, and we had a majority on one side say yes, and a majority on the other side say no. But Maria, any other thoughts on Purple Card? What you're even just, you know, moving away from the political and legislative component, but what's the conversation going on in our local communities right now about why this would be helpful?
I mean, it's definitely, right now people are so afraid, and a lot of people have not been like asking for help because of an ID or anything like that. And I think that this card is definitely going to bring a lot of like, not fully like peace, but it's definitely going to bring them a little bit of like hope, and it's going to make them like not be so afraid to go out there and get, you know, the help they need without them being turned away because of an ID.
Lauren?
So, you know, the ability of Colorado residents to work and support their families, that's a matter of state law. We have a completely broken immigration system. I don't know how many people are aware that last summer, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that our deportation process has not been following basic due process rules. And so that means for the last perhaps 30, 40 years, it's very possible that every deportation order that has been entered has been illegal. So we need to come to grips with the fact that even the Supreme Court is saying that our system is broken, and it's time for states to really take up their 10th Amendment responsibilities and say, hey, you know, I've read the Constitution and there is no mention of immigration in the Constitution whatsoever. It has not been delegated as a federal power, and we need to stop acting as though the federal government has power over immigration, because frankly, it does not. The only reason they're able to take this up is that we have allowed it to happen, and it's time that we take that back, particularly when they are not respecting the needs of this very important part of our population. So I would love to see Purple Card pass in the state of Colorado and a number of other states, and first as a way of supporting immigrants, and second as a way of sending a message to the federal government that they are shirking what they've taken on as their responsibility, and we are now identifying that they really never had the power in the first place, and we're going to take it back away from them.
And also, since money is a big conversation starter, or it's always in a conversation, it will help the economy in the state. More people working.
No, thank you for bringing that up, because we sort of jumped the gun a little bit on this one and started talking about the purple card before saying what it really did.
Yeah.
Or what it really does. And so for the viewing audience out there that are looking at this, so everybody knows more or less what a green card is, right? We all know essentially what that is. So the purple card's a little different, right? So this would be a state ID. This would allow people to pay into our state workers' compensation system. So but also give employers an opportunity to hire people while being able to do the appropriate kind of checks that any sort of business would do normally, and then be able to pay into a system that we know is not as well funded as it could be. So when workers get hurt, or when workers get hurt, they're taken care of. But at the same time, when employers are basically on the hook for taking care of their employees, which they should be, that they're not left out in the cold. They're not left out in a situation where they're going to end up getting sued or face hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs if somebody gets seriously injured on the job, oftentimes just through an accident. These aren't unscrupulous employers. These are people that are just working in what may be high risk jobs. You work in a kitchen. You've got knives and fire. I mean, bad things can happen with knives and fire.
Yes,
This is not rocket science. This is literally kitchen table conversation. And so, I don't know if we want to talk any more about some of the benefits of the purple card system, but basically, a good shorthand for people, if I was to use